Hello, welcome to my space here. I'm Ashley, and today I have my relationship toolbox for you. This is going to be focused on, and the relationship toolbox this week is called Hugs, Not Drugs. Because today we're going to be working on nurturing ourselves. So our word for this week is nurture, because I think that more than anything right now, we need to really support the divine feminine within us all. That means if you're male or female, because every time you come to this channel, I want you to remember that gender does not apply here. We both have masculine and feminine energy, so it's really important to support our divine feminine right now and really nurture ourselves, really give ourselves a lot of tender, loving care, because the world needs lots of care. And the only way that we can give the world lots of care is by caring for ourselves first, by filling our own cup. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about addiction. So if that's anything that's like triggersome for you or sensitive for you, then just be aware of that if you continue to watch this and watch all the way through. I'm just going to kind of share what I've learned from my own addictions and how I've learned how to nurture myself and care for myself, and how those addictions, they don't go away. They're always going to be part of you. They're your shadow. So we're going to kind of talk about shadow and light today as well, like this, because that's what masculine and feminine is within us. Masculine is our light energy, feminine is our dark energy, our shadow. So that's why it's so important. We're in our shadow right now. We're in our divine feminine energy, and that's what I mean by supporting ourselves when we're in the shadow. So when we're in the shadow, think of like shame, think of taboo subjects like sexuality and addiction maybe even, or like race and gender equality and stuff like that. So think of, that's kind of like our shadow aspect. Or like you think of slavery, and I think this is very important to remember because I was having a conversation recently with somebody, and they said, well, why we don't have slavery anymore? And I said, yes, we do, because we're slaves to our jobs. We're slaves to our addictions. We're slaves to our bad habits. We're slaves to our negative thinking. We're slaves to our debt. So slavery does still exist. It's just in a different way. It's just in a different way now. So we're more like slaves to our mind rather than having the mind work for us. We are slaves to it. So we operate. We do what it says. We listen to those voices of ego, of our like habitual self, as a way to it like programs us. So it's like a programming, and this is awesome because actually, speaking of programming, I just watched this, or I just listened to this amazing podcast called by Onyx Healing. I'll leave her information below just because I highly recommend her work. She's amazing. Talk about like, she's done a lot of shadow work, and she's just, I don't know, I just love her energy. And she talked about programming and how our programming is like our crown chakra. So really, and that's like located at the crown of our head. And she was talking about how it's like an external layer that helps us discern what is true for us. And that's how we follow like our higher selves. We follow our truth rather than following our programming, like programming of the subconscious mind, like trauma you may have experienced in childhood, or and I want to mention here, when I'm talking about addictions, I'm not just talking about alcoholics or people that are addicted to hardcore drugs. I'm talking about people that are addicted to negative thinking. Hello, that was me. That was probably one of the hardest habits for me to break. Was just negative thinking. It wasn't even like my food addiction. So that's another thing, is food. You can be addicted to food. These are all like more socially acceptable addictions. Addicted to social media, constantly checking your phone. Addicted to emotions. Did you know that we can be addicted to our emotions? I didn't know that until within the last few years, and I started doing some research. Also, I've mentioned before, the holistic psychologist. If you don't follow her, she has lots of great information about this, about how we can be addicted to lower based emotions like stress and drama and chaos, because maybe that's what we grew up around. And if our bodies are used to feeling that familiar sensation of survival mode and constantly being on guard and constantly being attacked or on edge or walking on eggshells, or we store that sensation becomes familiar in our bodies, and our bodies, we have that cellular memory. So we're actually, even if we don't want to feel stress, even if we don't want that chaos, even if we don't want that drama, our shadow self will unconsciously seek it as a way to feed itself, as a way to give it that high. That's what like addictions are. So we're getting that dose, we're getting that shot, even if it's just like a chemical in the brain. So another way that we can seek out drama, chaos subconsciously and maybe unconsciously, not recognizing ourselves, is like through TV and through movies. So we can actually feel these emotions by emotions that are invoked by watching maybe somebody else go through pain, or getting in an argument, or and so we will unconsciously, like if we saw our parents argue a lot as children, we will unconsciously argue in relationships as a way to, because we're just mimicking the behavior that was learned for our relationship blueprint. So we have to really take a step back, which nurturing ourselves allows for us to take a step back, to not be so much in our bodies and constantly in survival mode and like not seeing outside of our small selves, and we come back and tend to ourselves when we're in that shadow aspect. And what I'm going to teach you today. So the first thing, and this was developed just by kind of watching, like I've watched Yoga with Adrienne, another great resource. I'll leave her information below too. She's helped me learn how to like nurture myself, and yoga has helped me to nurture myself. That's why I love yoga so much, because whenever I wanted to go to food, I would go to the yoga mat, or even if I would binge eat, that's my addiction. Food is my addiction. So when I would do that, I would go to yoga instead of, going to the cupboard or going to the refrigerator. Sometimes I still do, I'm not gonna lie. And like I said, when I do binge eat, because it still happens, like we're gonna relapse as addicts, you're gonna relapse, and you have to be like, it's okay. You can't beat yourself up, because it's actually in those moments when you're struggling, when you messed up, that you need to be the most gentle with yourself. So I want to teach you how to do that, because I've been learning with my own inner masculine and my inner feminine, my outer masculine. So my father neglected me emotionally. Actually, both my parents, honestly. Whenever I would have like a really strong emotion, like anger or sadness or anxiety or frustration, or whenever I had like really big emotions, especially if I was crying, I was always told, I wasn't really nurtured. I was told to go to my room. I was told I was neglected. I was called a baby, so I was called names, or told to like stop, or I was threatened, or I was manipulated when I would have these big emotions. And what we're seeking when we're children like that, we're seeking love and connection in those moments, because we're struggling inside. We're struggling to process what we're feeling, and we can begin to feel all alone in those emotions when we're neglected and pushed away. So what will happen when you're an adult and you have these issues and like your parents neglected you, you will seek that out. You will seek that in partnership. So you'll unconsciously attract men who cannot be there for you, especially emotionally. Like you'll attract emotionally unavailable men as a way to show you this wound, so that you can learn how to really nurture yourself and take care of yourself. So as it can be seem like a curse to attract emotionally unavailable men, it's really the greatest teacher you'll ever have. So it really teaches you to nurture yourself and to meet your own needs, so then you can start attracting men that aren't emotionally unavailable and that can actually be there for you and support you during those times. So like I said, my inner masculine, I've noticed as I've been observing myself, rather than critiquing myself and criticizing myself, I observe myself have this emotion. And what I sense is my masculine holding space for me. No longer is this internal masculine running away. Like I'm not being rejected by this internal masculine like I was my father. I'm not being ridiculed or judged or shamed or neglected or pushed away, or like nobody's running away from me. And it really creates this safe place within myself. So then I can see that I've healed my inner masculine by not running away from myself, by not like going to the cupboard and masking my emotions with food or sugar or whatever it is, for you. For me it's food, but whatever it is for you, instead of reaching for that, then like just allowing myself to now feel that comfort and feel that safety and feel that security as I allow myself to feel my emotions. And I no longer feel like I'm doing something wrong by crying, or doing something wrong by having a really strong emotion or a strong reaction. Sometimes to nothing. Sometimes I'll be doing a pose on my yoga mat and I just waterworks, Sometimes there's not always a reason, and I want you to remember that's, you don't always have to like find the reason, like I'm crying because this and this and this, and be very specific. No, sometimes you just gotta cry because you have tension in your body and you need to release it, and that's how we expel. Like crying is just a way of releasing, it's just a cleansing tool. You just see crying as a tool rather than seeing crying as like an emotion and I don't know, something that you do. Crying isn't necessarily something you do, it's just something that comes out of you sometimes. It's just like, it's an expression. And so I think when we don't allow ourselves to cry, because what we'll learn in childhood is if our dad like neglects us or pushes us away when we cry, and he doesn't support us and hold us and be that safe container for us, then we'll stop feeling and we'll be like, no, because we'll do anything, especially as little girls, to gain our Father's love and approval. And if he doesn't like when we cry, if he can't handle us when we cry, if he abandons us when we cry, and all we desperately want is his love, then we'll do anything in order to please him and make sure that we get his love no matter what, and so we'll behave like little girls like we're supposed to so that we can get our Father's love. And that's serious truth. That's happened for me. That's creates chronic people pleasing. And I literally lived for my Father, and if anything to gain his love and approval and validation. So I just think it's important that if we don't heal those inner father wounds, like those wounds from when we're children, this will greatly affect our adult relationships, and we can really struggle in adult relationships to get really close and to believe that somebody's going to support us emotionally. So allowing us to be our true vulnerable selves and expressing our emotions, expressing when we're having a bad day and being like, I need your support, like being able to like not be scared that if we express our true selves that we're going to be abandoned or left out in the cold or rejected or denied. That when we can begin to like nurture ourselves through those moments and be kind to ourselves up here, because that's where addiction starts. Addiction starts in the mind, and when you can really, we beat ourselves up here. So if you're an addict and you relate to this at all, I came to learn self-love because I hated myself. And so if you experience any kind of self-hatred or anything like that, you harmed yourself. Like, be nice to yourself, please, because it's like those thoughts in our minds. And maybe you weren't around people. My parents, they didn't really necessarily uplift me. They always, they did a really good job of like criticizing me and, judging me and pointing out when I did things that were like not that great. But I think that happens a lot in childhood. We're not always validated the way we need to be or that we should be, and it's not our parents' fault either. It's our responsibility as adults to do it for ourselves, especially if our parents couldn't do it. And how do we do that? How do we let go of that resentment towards our parents for not giving us that love and nurturing that we needed? We see them as that same child that didn't get that love and nurturing and validation that they needed, and they're just living in a repetitive cycle. So it's up to us to break the cycle and to extend forgiveness, and in return love ourselves how we needed to be loved in those moments, and really taking the responsibility to care for ourselves in those healthy ways rather than going to our inherited coping mechanisms and survival skills, opening up our tool bag, our inner tool bag, relationship toolbox, opening up our inner tool bag and really, gifting ourselves and using the tools we have in order to provide this container for ourselves so that we can be in those strong emotions and not abandon ourselves. Because when we abandon ourselves, that's when we go to the addictions. So when we reach for the things instead of reaching for ourselves, instead of reaching for our hearts. With that being said, let's go ahead and start with our first one. So if you haven't come down to the ground, please, I encourage you. Actually, you don't even have to. If you're sitting in a chair, this is great too. You can do this in the bed. If you're in a bed, even better. Okay, so we're going to start with, I just like to sit up nice and tall, make sure your spine is nice and straight. You can kind of bring awareness to your body. Like my hands are a little cold on my warm legs. So bring your awareness to your body. How does your body feel today? We're just checking in with the body. I like to rub my thighs just to kind of make contact with my body and say, hey, I'm here for you, kind of getting quiet and asking yourself, what do you need from me today? Do you need me to go slow, or do you need gentle touch? These are all things I wish I could have said as a kid, when I was having bad days, I just need to be held, or I just need to be rubbed, or, I need a massage, or I just need, just voicing yourself and using your voice. Rather than being scared you're going to be, rejected. Continuing, that's the journey in my opinion. It's continuing to be vulnerable. In those moments that you, despite that you have fear, maybe I'm going to be rejected or abandoned if I voice how I truly feel, and maybe you will be. I'm not saying that you won't be, but what we really learn how to do is to not abandon ourselves anymore, to truly come back to ourselves. Be hey, this person can't provide this for me and what I need right now, so I'm going to give it to myself. I'm going to gift that to myself. When we really give to ourselves, when we truly nurture ourselves, then we no longer need it from externally, and what actually happens is it begins to reflect, and so we'll receive that same respect, that same behavior, that same nurturing back. And here's the thing to remember, it's not always going to look the way you want it to look. It's going to be everything you need, and there's a huge difference. This is one of my biggest inner child fits. Like I'll have tantrums, and this is my ego coming up, but when I get what I need, but it's not necessarily what I want, and so like seriously my inner child will throw a tantrum, and that's when I have to nurture myself, and I have to say, okay, I see that you're struggling here, I see that you're upset, I see that you're angry, I see that you're frustrated, I see that you're feeling left out, or whatever the emotion that I see you're feeling, fear or doubt or whatever, and then saying, okay, how can I help you get through this today, rather than being like, quit being a baby, or get over it, or there's no reason, like you don't need to be crying, like blah 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 blah, all those things we tell ourselves, like when really we just need to allow ourselves to feel the emotion and support ourselves through the emotion. Rather than pushing the emotion away, we want to embrace it. So let's go ahead and embrace ourselves. Like I said, come down to the floor if you haven't, or get comfy. And we're going to just start by bringing our arms out right in front of us. So sit up nice and straight, kind of bring your shoulders, make sure they're back, and bring some like intention to your arms, like intention to your body. You're not just like going through the motions, like kind of be relaxed, but then just like, yeah, we're going to wiggle our fingers. I love this. We store so much energy in our hands, and so our hands are very healing, and they're actually very powerful. And think about how many of us like type. We just use our hands so much, and they're one thing we probably take for granted. So let's give a little thanks for our hands. Thank you, hands. Thank you, fingers. I appreciate you and all you do. Think about we couldn't type. Oh my gosh. I like to dance with my hands a lot. You can go ahead and move your wrists if you want to give your wrists some love. Yeah, and like I said, we have so much energy in our hands, so sending you so much little love. We can make a little heart here. I was doing this before. Then we bring it to our third eye. Oh, like our third eye is our superpower. Okay, it's really fun to just get weird and funky with yourself. But anyway, like right in your third eye, sending your third eye lots of love. And then we're gonna bring our hands, and we're just gonna, you can do like right arm under left, and just bring it in, give yourself a big hug. Oh, make sure you smile and laugh, and it's gonna be kind of weird if you haven't really done this before, like sat on your floor in your house and took time just to hug yourself. That's gonna be kind of weird, so embrace the weirdness. We're gonna take 3 cycles of breath, so in the nose, and out the mouth. You can kind of massage your back with your fingers if you want. Just love on your body. Another breath in. And as you breathe out, just release any tension you're storing. Perfect, and then release your arms and your stretch them all the way out like you have big wings. Oh, as far as you can go, back, back, back. Stretching your upper chest, opening your heart. Oh, big wings, big stretch. And back, and then opposite hand underneath. And another hug. Oh, just imagine you're hugging, like you could imagine hugging someone you really love. You could imagine hugging like a big teddy bear. Oh. And then you can say just quietly to yourself, I love you. Breathe in the nose. Kind of lift your shoulders. Make sure you try to keep your heart lifted here. Try not to sink. Last one. Yes, delightful. And another stretch of the wings. Like you're reaching out to give somebody a hug. Yes, that feels good. You can kind of bring it back in. Prayer position at the heart. Take a couple cycles of breath here. Just check in with your body. Do you feel your heart opening? Do you feel more loved? Because what we're remembering is that we are love. Love is not outside of us. It's not something we have to get from somebody, like our fathers. It's not something we have to get because it's something we are. We are love. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. This one's just going to require you to kind of turn and sit. Actually, I want to go this way because my microphone's on this side. But yeah, I like to light myself some candles, and I have my crystals here. It's just about creating that space for yourself, and when you can create that space for yourself, internally, it's creating a beautiful place in your mind, so that, because it's our mind that we spend our whole lives with, not even our most intimate partners can know the intricate workings of our mind. And so that's one of the reasons I love the mind, and I think it's really important that our mind can be our worst enemy, or it can be our greatest tool and our greatest resource, and it's so valuable, and I think that we don't spend enough time nurturing it and taking care of it. And so this gives you a way to not just nurture your body, because you're connecting with your body, giving your body some love, allowing your body to rest, acknowledging your body, checking in with your body, but you're also allowing your mind time to just observe. Your mind is more of an observer than it is a doer, and so if we can try to observe our mind rather than work against it and fight against it, then we can see that it's just a mechanism that allows for us to perceive the world with our senses. And allows for us to express ourselves, express our feelings, express our emotions, what we're feeling through those sensations. That's all we're doing. The mind kind of decodes, and so we want our mind to be sharp, and we want our minds to be healthy, and we don't want them filled with a bunch of garbage. So if we heard a bunch of garbage growing up, maybe if we heard our parents arguing a lot or fighting a lot, this can relate to money as well, our thoughts about money, our thoughts about home, our thoughts about anything, really. And so those are really, our inner voices kind of cultivated, and it kind of masks our inner voice. So we have see, it's kind of weird. It's they're just voices that have been programmed, kind of like I was saying in the beginning. So the ego, let's say you heard that was bad, naughty. Then the ego is a program that picks up and it adds I am to it. So it says, I am bad, and then so this is our inner voice that starts to be formed. We're like computers, kind of, and so what we have to do is begin to tell ourselves a new story. So instead of telling that story we're a victim, or there's something wrong with us, or, that we never get what we want, or that we're always abandoned, or we're always left, or we're always going to be left, or people don't love us, or people judge us, or whatever it is you tell yourself, those limiting beliefs, it's really our job to observe those, like I was saying, and instead of judging them, embrace them. Give them a hug, say, wow, I hear this, but it doesn't resonate with me at all. It's not truth for me at all. And that's where we usually really use our crown chakra, and we use that programming to program ourselves for good. So one way that you can really program yourself is through mantras and positive affirmations, which is what I've done a lot. So every time you have a negative thought that starts coming up, and this is where you can be addicted to negative thinking, and this is where I was addicted to negative thinking, was the thought would arise, and then you can spiral, and you can add more momentum to that thought by thinking more negative thoughts, or you can stop, and this is where I've cultivated faith, and this is more of our feminine energy, which is more filled with faith and hope. And I was really incarnated into this family in this lifetime, into a family that's very pessimistic, negative, highly critical, judgmental. And so that became my inner voice, but it was totally resistant and against my nature, which is optimism, hope, faith. And I have crazy amounts of hope. People think I'm literally nuts, crazy in the mind, that I have so much positivity, that I have so much hope, that I have so much faith. Some people can't even comprehend that type of optimism and positivity. And it's funny because I used to be one of those people. Like, I was one of the most negative people ever. And this really was just limiting me in so many ways. And the only way that I could really, it's not something that you see, but it reflects in your behavior. So if you have a lot of negative thoughts, you'll complain about things a lot. You might complain about your health, you might complain about your finances, and this keeps you really stuck in both those areas. So like really cleaning up because it's like the inner dialogue. If you can catch what you say, then you can catch your inner dialogue before you start to say it, because our words are creation, and the more we speak things and use our voice, the more we're creating more of that. So even now as I'm speaking, I'm feeling some energy in my throat chakra. So even just like sharing my truth or like making this video can activate your throat chakra and make you feel like, want to like close off, or to not speak, or to kind of like, it's kind of a weird feeling to describe, but really allowing yourself to fully express more of your positive thoughts. So every time you have a negative thought, shifting to faith and replacing that negative thought with a positive thought. So you're just like, you have to kind of override, like I was saying, it's a programming, you have to override it with a new thought. So you have to sit maybe in silence or meditation, or in like this self-care area where you've created for yourself, and you just sit and you massage your body, or you do your yoga, and while you're doing that, you're reprogramming your mind by speaking positively to yourself, by uplifting yourself. So all those things you wanted your dad to say to validate you and validate your existence, or all the things you want your partner to say to you and validate your existence, and validate that love and make sure you're loved and to make sure you're worthy and stuff, that has to come from you. So using that time, this self-care time, instead of just to be consumed by negative thoughts and worry, which really leads to the addictions like the overeating or the overspending or the over connectivity with being on Instagram, or the over drinking, or whatever it is for you, it's that negative thinking that leads to the addiction. So if you can stop it in the mind, then your behavior is gonna shift without you doing. It's not necessarily about, and then like you take the action step by caring for yourself. So like going to this moment, tending to yourself, nurturing yourself, that's the new action. Because when you nurture your mind with more positive thoughts, you're going to nurture your body with positive actions, with positive behavior. And then as you do that, you change over time. So it really does, it all starts in the mind. And I think it's really important to, build ourselves up, because who's going to do it? Nobody else is going to do it. We have to do it ourselves. And that's the hardest part. And it's like, how do I have the time to build myself up? How do I have the time? Well, you can do it anywhere. You just have to be aware of your thoughts. You have to become an observer of the mind instead of a doer of the mind. You're not a doer of the mind. Because the mind will try to make you do things all the time that aren't healthy for you. But it likes habit, it likes familiarity, it likes repetition. So if you're used to doing unhealthy habits and unhealthy things, your body and your mind are trained to do that. So it's going to go to that. That's going to be its first. And you have to have the willpower and the self-discipline and the awareness and the compassion to recognize yourself wanting to do this compulsive behavior, and then instead doing a new behavior. And this rewires your brain. It creates new grooves in your brain. And the more you do this healthy action, and you override the unhealthy habit, and then you create a healthy habit and you replace the old habit with a new habit. But it just takes this time and this awareness, and the compassion is key part, because when you relapse, whatever your addiction is, and you relapse and you start thinking negatively again, and you have a couple days where you think negatively, you just see yourself, and you have to have the compassion and be like, okay, we'll do better the next day. What can I continue to give you? How can I continue to be here for you? Do you need to go for a run? Do you need to eat better foods? Do you need to take a nap? Do you need to create? What do you need to do? And really nurturing yourself and getting to know yourself and meeting your needs so that your cup feels filled, and you no longer need that validation to come from outside of you. But you can really be a conduit for love. And then we can give more love, and we can receive more love in return. So, anyway, on to the next one. This is really easy. I like the standing version of this, which I've done for another relationship toolbox, which is called the Hanged Man. But this is going to be a forward fold, but it's going to be a sitting forward fold. So we're going to reach our arms all the way up. Big deep breath in, and then exhale. Bend, and you're going to want to bend try, wherever you land is perfectly okay. You could maybe even bend your knees a lot. You can even bring them in closer to you, because that's kind of what we're doing here. We want to hug ourselves, right? So this is another way for us to hug ourselves. So you can reach for the ankles, reach for the thighs, reach on your pant legs, whatever it is for you. We're going to be here for a few breaths. You can allow your head to relax. Maybe move a little side to side. You should feel good on your lower back. You should feel like the stretch in your hamstrings. Feeling any tightness, it's really about using your breath as a tool to breathe through the discomfort. This is a great one for the nervous system. Three more cycles of breath. You're going to bring your hands to your legs, to your ankles. And we're going to slowly roll up. Sitting up nice and straight. I just love to be connected to my legs here. I just need to stay connected to the body. Shoulders back. Sitting up nice and straight. Going to flex the toes towards your face. And away from your face. Into your face. And away from your face. Okay, perfect. And then the last one, which this is probably one of my all-time favorites, is, I don't think it has an official name, but we're going to bend our knees. I like to bring mine really close to my body, but you can do it like here and kind of rest like this. But yeah, like I said, I like to bring mine in. I like to really feel the root chakra connected to the earth here. And this is going to be the final little hug that we give ourselves today. So really make sure you take the time to enjoy it. Focus on your breath. Listen to your breath. Observe your breath. If your mind wants to wander, let it wander, but always come back to your breath. Your breath is like an anchor that anchors you to your body. So, and you can do this anywhere. Like if you're at a store and you're feeling anxious, you can always return to your breath. If you're in a meeting and you're nervous, or if you're in a crowd and you're nervous, you can focus on your breath. And this just brings you back to your body. And then you feel that like internal support. I was just feeling that today. And it felt like really connected. I felt really connected to the earth. And I felt like I was sitting on my throne again, sitting back in my chair. And then this is when we just allow Spirit to work through us. And we're just like a conduit, a vessel for creation to work through. Because remember, we're not separate from God. He dwells within us. He's the stillness. He's the light. And of course we have the chaos and we have the turmoil and we have the ego. But that's not him. He is the stillness. He is the breath. He is, the light within us. So all we have to do is seek that light, allow ourselves to reunite with that light, and still be at peace with our shadow, with our ego, and have the ego work for us rather than we work for the ego. That's how we're slaves still. We're slaves to the ego. So really we free ourselves from this. I actually had one more thing I do want to talk about, because I like to talk about past lifetimes, and honestly it scares me to talk about, so that's why I know that it's important for me to talk about. But I've had a past lifetime with a soulmate, and I was recognizing, and we were slaves. And think of like Underground Railroad. So I have clear visions of us, like we worked as a team to get ourselves out of slavery, like by digging underground. And there were times when, you obviously could not see anything in front of you, and the space underground was so tight, it was so claustrophobic, that you would seriously have panic attacks. You would freak out, like you could totally lose your shit very easily. So you had to stay very calm, and you had to stay very centered, and you would have to focus on your breath, to make it, through these little like, and they're just like little like dwellings, if that's the right word. But it's like digging. You were like digging, and you were trying to get your way through. You couldn't see anything, and I think that's what we're learning right now as a collective, is we are underground. We can't see anything. We can't see where this is going. We don't know where things are headed, and it can make people feel very uncertain. We feel like we're walking in the dark, right? But we are the light, and that's what we're learning, is that we are the light. And so this past lifetime is really helping me, because what happened is we did get free, and I spent a great lifetime with this soulmate in this lifetime, and we had hardly anything. But what happened is, how that you become a slave, that slavery is it's familiar, and so it's easier to be a slave because it's familiar, it's known, you already know how to be one, right? But when you free yourself from slavery, it's like, what kind of life do I live now? How do I free myself mentally from the experience of slavery? Because it's something that's formed in the mind. Slavery is a perception. And so when we really free ourselves from those bad habits, or we free ourselves, from things that were binding us or that are not healthy for us, then we free ourselves, emotionally and physically. And that lifetime just kind of helped me see, like, okay, I'm moving through the dark right now. It's really helped me to really free myself mentally, because, sure, in that lifetime I was a slave, I was enslaved. I felt like a prisoner, and sometimes I will even remember having shackles on my wrists. And it's so crazy, because, how that lifetime was still affecting me in this lifetime, believing, still having the energy of slavery. So, it kept me feeling very trapped and very bound. And what I've really learned how to do is liberate my mind. And when you liberate your mind, you liberate your soul, and then you liberate your heart, and you liberate your body. And it's, a life changer, right? So, anyway, back to what I was saying. This is going to be the final one, as I'm undoing my legs here. So yeah, we're going to just bring our arms around. Just get however, close you can get to yourself. Like I said, this is probably one of my favorite ones. This is how I usually, end a yoga practice, or how I just meditate. And so, let's go ahead and just take our last few breaths together. That kind of sounds like morbid, not taking our last. We're not dying together, but maybe we are. We're going to allow ourselves to die. That's kind of what the inner feminine is about. It's like death. We allow ourselves to go in cycles and rebirths, and we're constantly changing and evolving and becoming new, and we're constantly freeing ourselves from these old habits, these old ways of thinking, and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens in cycles. And I always thought, it's going to get easier, and I find that it never gets easier. I just get stronger. And so some days it is really hard, and I'm like, dang, I wish things were easier. But easiness, it doesn't really create growth, and I know that's what my soul came here to do, is just to build that internal strength. And so you can be grateful and struggle at the same time. So I want you to remember that you can be both. So let's go ahead and bow our heads to our bodies. Thank you for being here with me. If you watch this, thank you for listening to me, and I really appreciate you. And yeah, I want you to just make sure you give yourself some love. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to change. All you need to do is give yourself some tender, loving care, and choose hugs over drugs. So anyway, let's go ahead and bow our heads to our knees, or at least towards your heart. We're just going to focus on our breath here. something I do want to remind you here is that you're not alone. You know, you're not alone, not at all. There's so many people who are struggling and who feel the same way that you do. So I just hope you remember that, because I remember times when I felt extremely lonely, and that can be a very hard feeling to bring yourself out of. And when we reunite with our soul, you know, we never feel alone because we enjoy being in our own company. Like, get to know yourself. You're really fucking awesome, I'm sure. And once you realize that, then you you don't mind spending time with yourself. You don't mind taking care of yourself. Where I used to dread taking care of myself, just the simplest task of caring for myself, now, like, I enjoy it. It's something I want to do. It's something that fuels me and makes me feel good, and that's the purpose, is to do what makes you feel your best. It makes you feel like your truest, highest self. And to just keep doing more of those things. Even if you're still doing the bad things, even if you're still doing those things, you can do both. You can be both. You can be bad and you can be good. You can be right and you can be wrong. You know, you can be black and you can be white. You can be all the things, you know, you can be male and female, you know. That's kind of my point, but anyway. Yeah, I hope you can continue to sit here and give yourself a hug for as long as you want, or do this anytime you feel like you're feeling tender and you just need some love, and yeah, just do that for yourself so you can fill yourself up and make yourself feel good, because I want you to feel good. So make sure you give yourself lots of nurturing, and thank you for being here. I will be back next time, and I'm sending you so much love and care.